The Cloud Setup Invoices tab is where project invoices are created and managed by the admin. To create a new invoice entry, select the appropriate job that the budget is associated with from the Job drop-down menu. Click the Add button, type in the invoice name and then set the assigned and additional users. To edit or delete an invoice entry, click on the invoice name to select it and then click the Edit or Delete button. To modify the invoice data, click the Data button. Click the Add Row button to add a new row to the invoice. Click into the appropriate cell to modify its value. Set the appropriate tab radio button to determine the direction for the tab key. Reposition invoice items by clicking on the item and using the arrow keys. To recalculate invoice totals once numerical values have been updated, click the Calculate button. To export the invoice to a report file, click the Report button. Name the report file and then set the parameters for what is to be included in the report along with the desired report file format, then click OK to generate the report file. To restore data from the previous invoice to use as a template for the new invoice, click the Restore Last Invoice Data button at the bottom left corner of the dialog. Prior to using the Build or Custom CSV buttons, some setup is required back in the Cloud Setup dialog. The Build button allows you to create an invoice by importing columns of data from a report, and the Custom CSV button allows you to export selected columns of data from an invoice to a CSV file. To start the invoice setup, from the Cloud Setup dialog, click the Setup button. You can optionally add up to 3 leading and trailing custom columns to the invoice by setting the appropriate radio buttons for each. To set up the column mapping for the Build and Custom CSV buttons, click the Column Map button. To the right of each invoice column header name, select the appropriate report import column number and / or custom CSV export column number. You can also adjust the invoice column widths if needed. To change labels on the invoice report, click the Labels button, find the label that you would like to change and then type in the text that will replace that label. Once column mapping has been set up, to build the invoice from the mapped report columns, be sure to click on the appropriate report in the Report tab to generate it. From the Invoice Data dialog, click the Build button. Once column mapping has been set up, to export the mapped columns to a CSV file, click the Custom CSV button.